right, welcome to the next episode of the Finchloom Show. My name is Jim Richardson, and in today's episode, we're going to go over a couple of things. Like, number one, we're going to talk about the many ways to watch the show. Number two, our big topic of the day is going to be the Microsoft breach. You might have heard about it in the news. I got an email about it. We're going to break it down. I also wanted to share some funny stories with the team about meeting etiquette when you're in a Microsoft Teams meeting. What have we seen that's kind of considered funny, and what should you and shouldn't you do when you're in a meeting? And then we brought our guest speaker, Terry, back. He's going to go through the anatomy of an attack email. And then we'll end it on our usual spot with Bilal talking about technology horror story. So with that being said, let's introduce the team again. My name's Jim Richardson, founder and CEO of Finchloom. Up at the top next to me is Bilal.
Hey.
Down here at the bottom is our special guest, Terry.
Hello.
And over here in this corner is our friend Emily.
Hello.
I'm trying to get my finger to point to the correct box. It's funny. So I wanted to start off by asking you guys about how you've watched the show. Did you watch episode 1 or 2, or did you show it to any of your friends or family?
I did not. I watched it myself, though.
Oh, how did you watch it? What did you use?
Oh, I just went to YouTube and went to Finchloom.
So you used your
Finchloom's
desktop
YouTube
and you
channel.
watched it in the browser?
Yep.
Okay. How about you, Terry, below?
I did. I had family over that weekend, and they were asking about my job, and I said, hey, let me jump on YouTube real quick. I'll tell you what we talk about. And I threw it up on the Apple TV, and everybody was like, oh, that's great.
Nice, on the big screen.
Absolutely.
I watched on my phone and then shared it with all my family and friends so that I can become a popular YouTube star.
Great. Well, that's the whole point of my first topic. It's that there's many ways to watch our show, right? You've each described a different way. You have one that used the browser, one that used the television, one that used the mobile device. And also, too, I want to tell the audience out there that there's ways that you can tune in without having to watch. A lot of this can be like a radio show where you just turn this on in the background while you're working and listen to it on your headphones, or play it in the car on your way to work. Hopefully, we're going to be talking about some really good security things that you can learn from and maybe bring into the office, some new attacks that you might have heard of in the wild that you can prevent against. So there's many ways to watch the show. Also, I wanted to point out that we are a new YouTube channel, and we've got 39 subscribers now, up from 36 last time. So we just want to encourage more people to subscribe to the show. Number one, you get a notification whenever we go live. And right now we're kind of averaging every 2 weeks or so. But we don't post a schedule, so if you want to see us live, you have to subscribe. And then secondly, it builds our subscriber base. So if we get a nice base of subscribers, we'll start putting ads on our show, getting money so Bilal can be famous, and then we can put some budget into the show and maybe invite some celebrities or do some killer stunts live on the air.
Absolutely.
So please subscribe. All right, so first thing I wanted to do was talk about the Microsoft breach. Did any of you hear about that in the news?
I did not.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here real quick. And show you my browser here. And if you just search for Microsoft breach, you can see all these different news articles that have been written. And like many people, if you just focus on the headline, you're going to miss out on what the real story is. And when you look at these headlines, it kind of seems really scary that something horrendous just happened at Microsoft. So I wanted to clarify some of the confusion around this and explain what really happened with the Microsoft breach. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to switch over to this email that I got. Microsoft sent out an email to me as an admin, and they explained what happened. And basically, between December 5th and December 31st, there was a network that was exposed to the internet, and a third-party researcher had determined that they could access a support database that Microsoft Support uses to track cases with customers. And we use Microsoft support as well as an escalation point for our customers. And they store things like the name of the customer, the email contact, the phone number, the description of the problem, and the steps that they've used to reproduce them. And this all gets stored in the database. So that database did get breached, or actually, I should say it was a vulnerability that the hacker or the good hacker exposed as potential for being breached. Microsoft automatically closed that once they became aware of it, and then they sent out this message. So rather than looking at the headlines that make you think, oh boy, all my credit cards and social security numbers were hacked, if you really take the time to read through this, you can see that it's not really that at all. It was support cases that were exposed in the database. And also, one last thing to know is that even though this was a vulnerability, there was no known breach that was actually attempted or that was successful. Microsoft scans the dark web and all that, and they look for activity where people might post this type of information. And so far, no one's come forth as saying that they actually got this. So this is more of a notice letting you know what happened, why there was a vulnerability, and what they did to fix it. And this is becoming more common these days. Do you guys ever get emails like this saying, hey, we had a breach?
Oh, yeah. From every credit company that I've ever signed up with, every hospital I've ever visited, every...
Nobody says they had a breach and my credit was, all my debt was erased, though. It's always, you know what I mean? That's what always amazes me.
I wanted to, become a hacker and hack into my school's database and give everybody straight A's, but
right.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that, right? But
I think one thing on that too, Jim, I was looking at too, that if you do feel like maybe some of the stuff you were looking for, it does have in there that you can go to Azure and open up a support request, and based on your tenant number, they'll send you what was leaked.
Yeah.
So if you are an admin out there and you did get it, you can go to Azure and open a support request, and they'll send you what they feel was exposed.
Good. And we could help with that too. If any of our customers call in, we could submit that request. But I don't think that it's something that was that damaging. If you submit a ticket with Microsoft, they might have some info, but not the keys to the castle. So let's move on to our next topic. This is Microsoft Teams, and you can see here we're using Teams to do our show. And you've all probably joined a team, while working here and with customers, and you see some funny things that have happened. So I'll start by saying my funny story, and then we can just go around the room and talk about some funny things that we've seen or heard in meetings. I always find it funny when people join a meeting and then they leave their microphone turned on, and they're not speaking during the meeting, but throughout the meeting, whoever is speaking or the other participants, all they hear are dogs running in the background, kids yelling in and out of the bathtub, alarms going off, or dogs barking, whatever it may be. So one of the important things that I always tell companies when they onboard to Teams for meetings is to start teaching your employees the new proper etiquette when you're doing web-based meetings. A lot of people are still just used to the old dial-in method where they pick up their phone and they call in. And yeah, that's easy. You can just push a mute button on your phone and no one will hear you. But when you have a camera and a microphone and you're sharing content, you got to be more aware of things. So that was my funny story. Bilal, what have you seen when you're in a Teams meeting and maybe somebody's not used to being in a Teams meeting and they suffer?
I can definitely relate to the things that you talked about, the dogs barking especially. But I actually am someone that make some of those mistakes at the beginning of when I first started heavily using Teams for my meetings. I would leave my mic open while I'm taking notes, and I have this really nice loud keyboard, and everybody would be sitting there talking, and I'm jamming away taking notes at everything that's being said, and all they hear is
hey, I hear it now.
Yeah, that's probably one of the things, I learned how to quickly mute.
Yeah, exactly. These headsets have them built in, right?
Yep.
Emily, what have you seen? You've been in a few meetings.
Yes, I have. So I think it's great when you're in a meeting and you have someone presenting something, and they go and they share their screen, and they're talking about, maybe they start showing all these things, and they start talking about things, and you're like, what are they talking about? I don't know what they're talking about. All I see is a PowerPoint. And they're sharing the application, not their whole screen. And then, you have to interrupt them and let them know, hey, I can't see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Got to share your screen, not the application.
I'm guilty of that. Terry, what have you seen?
There's two of them actually opposite of you, and I think it's actually kind of funny as someone that's on mute and doesn't realize it. It's a little difficult. It's funny because there's two ways that it happens. One, if you're not have video on, then everybody just says, hello, are you there? I think you're on mute, and then pretty soon it comes back on. The best one is when they're on mute and they're talking, and everybody in their windows is going like this.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh. And the other thing Emily was saying, I've noticed, and this is something it happened to me, was I'm sharing my screen and we're talking, and I forget that I'm sharing my screen and just move on to some other work as the meeting's going on, and I'm responding to people in my Teams chat, and someone goes, hey, we can see you talking about us. And you're like, oh, my bad. Wow. You weren't supposed to see that. So you have to be very careful about what you're sharing and remember that you're sharing.
Yeah, that's funny because yesterday I was doing a Teams meeting in a room with people, and there were remote people joined in. And as I was talking in the room, the people from the remote were sending me messages on screen and also through my email. So I would get these notifications. I mean, that's my bad. There's a way to fix that. It's called Do Not Disturb. And if you set, it's right up here. Look, if you set the Do Not Disturb setting, instead of in a call, I can go here, Do Not Disturb. And now I shouldn't get anything that disturbs me on my screen, which is great for when I'm sharing like this. But yeah, those are
careful because when you're on a meeting, you're talking, and you want to talk to somebody on the side to be like, hey, let's remind them about this or that, and they're sharing their screen, the client sees it as well.
Yeah. So just remember that this toolbar right here that I'm showing on the broadcast is your friend. You can turn your camera on and off, your microphone on and off, control your screen sharing, and so forth. So make use of the controls you have in front of you when you're in a meeting, and let's all learn together what the new type of etiquette is for these web-based meetings. So now we talked about our guest star, Terry, who's here today, and we have a service here at Finchloom called Fish Prevent, and this is where customers of ours can submit emails to us by pushing a button in Outlook, and it sends us the email so we can analyze it and see if it's bad or not. And then if it is bad, we can pull it out of that company's mail server so no one else sees it. If it's good, we send it back to the end user who reported it. So Terry, you get a lot of these submissions from time to time. And as I peek in there, there's some that are really interesting. I wonder if you'd share one that's really interesting with us.
Yeah, I got one today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And one that we're seeing more and more common is what we like to call spoofing. And this is a email that came in to Brian Levine, one of our owners, and he read it, didn't know what it was from, and sent it to us. So as you can see here on the screen, just to point out here, this is going to be who sent the email. Is the way we see
sender in his inbox.
Here.
The sender showed as finchloom.com.
It showed as our company, and they tried to make it look like it's a do not reply email that comes back. Yep. But you can see the extra stuff that's added on here that normally wouldn't be there. And then the return path somewhat looks the same, but it actually has a lot more on the end of it that a normal one wouldn't. So let's go ahead and take a look at the email here. It says, hi, Levine. So
hi, B. Levine. And by the way, they title it Office 365 Update Notice because we all know update notices come via email in a non-formal way. So good job.
Right. So they're basically saying that he has two messages here. They couldn't be delivered due to a server error, which never happens on Microsoft's side.
By the way, what is HST? Because here where Brian Levine works, he works in Pacific Standard.
Right. So this is a time stamp. I'd have to look up exactly where in the world it's at.
Probably
so let's take a look.
They're located.
Let's take a look right here. This is where we look. Look at there. South Korea. It looks like the servers where it pinged off.
And this same sender sent this out to 7 different companies, and through crowdsourcing, 7 different companies have reported it as phishing.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So when we go down here, and this we see our little URL in here, where the back, what they want you to click. So I have spun up a virtual machine here.
So you're saying if Brian had clicked on this, it would have taken him to a website. He didn't click on it, obviously, but now that he sent it to you, you have the ability to click on it, basically, and see where it would have taken him.
Yeah, let's take a look here. Can you guys still see my screen?
Yeah.
You can see the browser?
Yeah.
All right. So let's go ahead and plug this in. Let's see what we get here.
Do not try this at home.
Yeah, good. Public service announcement. This is a secured virtual machine that we have isolated, and we use it for detonating malware. So it looks like it's already been taken down.
Yeah.
It probably was a page that was made to look like Office 365 and tried to get Brian to enter his credentials. So yeah.
Let's take a look here. Yeah, so this shows that it has been removed.
Yeah. So you took a look at all this info, and then what did you do?
Well, we decided that we agreed that it was phishing, that Brian Levine doesn't have 2 messages from admin on January 15th that couldn't be delivered due to a server error. Yeah, so we go ahead and we mark it as phishing, and in turn that removes it from his mailbox right away. So he can't accidentally click it, or it's not sitting there. If there was 9, 15, 16, 1,000 other people that this was in their mailbox from our company, it would automatically remove those too, Jim.
That's great. So Brian is kind of like the hero because he reported it, and Absolutely. Those of us who may not have seen it yet, it would be deleted from our mailboxes before we got to see it.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Thanks, Terry. That's the anatomy of an attack email, and we'll bring these up probably once a month to show you what these attackers are up to and what they're trying to do and pull off with unsuspecting end users. But we're going to turn you from unsuspecting into aware end users, and we're going to build a security culture together. So our last topic, because I know, Emily, you've got to get going. This is our famous segment called the Technology Horror Story. I've got a little picture here that goes along with it to show up on the broadcast. And this is where we bring Bilal up to the stage, and he can share his quick horror story with us.
All right. Is that me? Okay. Am I sharing myself? I thought Emily was going to do something, but
yeah. Oh no! Go ahead and take your time. I was able to move my 2 o'clock to 2:15. So go ahead.
Oh, nice! Thank you.
Okay. Just well, in the world of horrors, phishing attacks have become the way for malicious actors to get into our systems, and we've all become a little bit more aware of it. And as the public becomes more aware of what a phishing attack is and what they're trying to do, and some of the things that we see out in the ransomware world, we've shared stories about users being identified and used to pull company funds. And I think I've shared a story about a company that was negated, their security was negated, and some data was lost. But I think what we have to remember is that there's people involved in these. And although I laugh a lot about these horror stories, it can have some pretty serious outcomes. And that's, I think, something that I had to remember today as I was laughing about this story. But this goes back a couple of years. There was a worm.
And you won't use names. So
no names. So there was a worm that was traversing the internet and wrapping company data up, encrypting it, and making sure that anyone that got encrypted got a little note that said, "Hey, your data has been encrypted, and we want $1 million to decrypt it for you so you can have your data back." It got pretty popular. The news caught on to it. Some gray white hat hackers, or gray hackers, whatever you want to call them. Yeah, there you go.
That's the worm, right?
Yeah, that's the worm. They picked up on it. They started trying to figure out, where is it coming from? And cybersecurity firms were trying to track down this worm and where is it coming from. They identified something that was a call out to them. They're like, this has to be Russian malicious actors. And it was like, well, why? How did you guys know that? And so they released to the public that this worm would not attack anything that had the Russian language package installed on the server or the device. Okay, cool deal. So the story's out there. Okay, yeah, Russian malicious actors. So as an IT admin, this one particular IT admin read this story and said, "How am I going to protect my environment from this?"
Install the Russian language pack.
Install the Russian language pack. Unfortunately, he didn't know how to do that. So he started searching away at how to install Russian language packs, and ended up on a site that said, "Hey, here's the Russian language pack. All you got to do is download it, install it on your server, and you'll have the Russian language pack." He continued to do that and thought, yeah, hey, I'm in the clear now. I don't got to worry about this worm that's going around eating up everybody's data. Comes back the next day to find out that download package, that package that he downloaded and installed on his server, was part of that encryption worm.
They were one step ahead. That's awesome.
Yeah, and by default I say his. It could be he or she, but that's they could be they. So that was a and he did never. No one was ever informed about either his concern, the action he took to try to prevent it, or what the potential solution was after that. I mean, unfortunately, no one else knew what was going on. They just came back to a completely encrypted database and ended up right back at the very first step in a very bad place.
That's crazy. Well, yeah, that is a horror story, and it's interesting that now we have some advanced tools that can help to detect that kind of thing. And it's actually the last thing I want to bring up today. We had a little glitch this morning when we were trying to do the show, and I finally figured out why. So I just want to share my screen here real quick so I can show you. So we use in-house, we use Windows 10 Enterprise, and we have Microsoft Defender Advanced Threat Protection running. And I went over here the other day and I wanted to protect my computer. So I saw over here there's this new ransomware protection that's built in. And there's a setting here that says you can control folder access, protect files, folders, and memory on your device from unauthorized changes by unfriendly applications.
All right.
So I turned that on thinking, oh, great. Now I won't be victim of ransomware ever again, which was probably true. But I also inadvertently broke all of these other apps that I use, like my broadcast tool. And there is a way that once you turn it on, you can tell it which apps are trusted. I just didn't want to go through all that today, so I turned it back off. But that's what broke our show earlier today. In an attempt to really protect my machine, I caused other problems. But there you go. So that was it for today. Does anybody have anything in closing you want to say? Any big plans for the weekend?
Supposed to be
I'm going to try to get on.
Sunny's always good.
I'll try to get on Rise of the Resistance pretty soon. Got to get the boarding group.
Okay.
Yes, I want to say if anybody's watching this on the East Coast right now, it is warm and nice here. It's really fantastic. It's fantastic.
I was going to say, pointing at your window, I was just looking at your window. I'm like, man, that looks like some beautiful scenery in the background right there.
It's shorts and flip flop weather. It really is.
This is just one of those new fake backgrounds, the virtual backgrounds. All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming in, and thanks for watching. That was the end of Finchloom show number 3. Remember to tune in next time by subscribing, and also look for us on YouTube. Our channel is there if you search Finchloom, LinkedIn if you search for Finchloom, and also on Facebook.